we've got a guest with us today, and this is going to be talking about the FaniWillis situation. So we've got some text.
Do we say Fanny?
Funny? Oh, I'm sorry. It's funny.
That's why we get demonetized, because you keep using the wrong.
It's not Britain. It's more offensive in Britain to say Fanny than it is here.
Well, what's the deal? Is it Kamala or Kamala? Or Kamala? I'm a completely
Kamala, I think.
Okay, because
I don't know.
She has called herself Kamala.
But she, yes.
Right.
I always love that too. Where you can find previous records where they call themselves another name, whatever it is. But to lead into it, I saw this earlier from my friends at the behavior panel, Chase Hughes breaking down a little bit of her testimony. Let me cue this up.
Okay. All right. This is exciting.
Well, I just think it sums up.
When she's asked about getting the money from the ATM.
So when you got cash to pay him back on these trips, would you go to the ATM? No, lady.
You're going to see a huge postural adjustment, leaning to her right. Forehead is relaxed until she looks up and makes eye contact. This eyebrow flash behavior is so programmed into us that I've got a 2-month-old baby here, and she does this to get approval. Then we see lip licking, which is we associate with stress. It's a hygienic gesture. Then we see eye closure or eye blocking during the denial at the precise moment she makes a denial. And there's some serious discomfort. The hand under her chin, then to the front of the chin, then to the face. Multiple adjustments.
Wow.
2
Wow.
seconds. Then
look at that. Go, lady.
And the lips when answering the question. In my opinion, this is one of the largest clusters of behavior that might indicate deception that we've ever covered here. On our show.
I saw that and I thought that is the perfect thing to lead in and talk to with Phil Holloway. Welcome, Phil.
Welcome,
Phil.
Hey,
happy to be here. How's everybody?
Very good.
All right. Now, Phil is going to help us to kind of keep track of what's going on with Fani, because I have to confess, I watched it a couple of weeks ago when it was going down, and her testimony, I really listened to it. So statement analysis wise, I was like, this is if somebody was to cover her testimony with statement analysis, it would be a 10-hour video, because they'd be stopping every 10 seconds on, that's deceptive and this is why. But Phil got actual physical evidence presented that directly contradicts statements made by her and Nathan Wade. So we could talk about body language all day and statement analysis, but boy, physical evidence is always a good thing. And Phil here is the one who provided these texts to Megan Kelly. Yes, day before yesterday.
Yeah, it's like drinking from a fire hose. That's hard for me to figure out what day it is, but that's right.
Okay.
Phil, tell the audience who you are in case they don't know who you are.
So I'm Phil Holloway. I'm a lawyer in the Metro Atlanta area. In fact, in Cobb County, which is next door to Fulton County, where all this is going on. But interestingly enough, a lot of the players involved in this are people that have offices and a big presence in Cobb County as well. And and lawyers around here, we all hit all the courthouses, so it's a relatively small legal community, at least in terms of criminal law. And so I know a lot of these folks personally, and obviously when we found out that this was going to be the case of the century and it was going to be right here in our backyard, most people started paying very, very close attention, myself included. And then lo and behold, people that I know start getting hired by this defendant or that defendant, and suddenly it all becomes real or almost surreal. But to be honest with you, I've always had my concerns about, prosecuting the head of the opposing party, right? When you're talking about bringing a political prosecution or a criminal prosecution that looks like a political prosecution for, improper reasons. And this is not about Donald Trump. Regardless of how anybody feels about Trump, this is about a fair system. You've got to have a fair system. And if you don't have a fair system, you can't even get to the issue of guilt or innocence, because you've got to have due process, fundamental fairness. That's what this is all about. But I started as a prosecutor in the metropolitan Atlanta area in Cobb County. So I've been on that side. I've been in private practice now since 2003. And I'm kind of really, really almost a little bit embarrassed to see what's happening in the legal community in my town.
I would be.
This is like the days of our lives.
Yeah.
It is a soap opera because the way you described it earlier, everybody knows everybody, and this is like a cast. So this could be a season of a show when you have Nathan Wade who's having sex with the main prosecutor, and this is going on. What brought you into this current situation?
Can you be more specific? Which situation are we referring to? Because I've been dealing with. I mean, I have a big media presence. I go on national TV, local radio, national radio. I'm a legal analyst for a news station here, and so I've been talking about this in a lot of different contexts. But here lately, it's really, really, really gotten off the chain. And honestly, it's one of the more interesting criminal cases that I've dealt with. And I'm glad I'm glad that I'm in the press box calling the plays versus on the field. These lawyers are doing a great job, but I'd rather be talking about it, to be honest with you.
Hold on, you're talking about the case against Trump or this?
Yeah, this particular case.
The case, not this hearing. You're talking about the overall case.
Yeah, the overall case, and in this hearing too. But these lawyers have their work cut out for them. But like I said, I like my role being on the outside looking in, but it sure is fascinating.
But you're in the loop, Phil. Apparently, they're texting you, and you're able to understand what people.
I know a lot of the players. I know a lot of the lawyers. I know some of the defendants, for that matter. Because there's local attorneys that are caught up in this and local political types that are caught up in it. So, you can't really, in my position as a lawyer in the metropolitan Atlanta area, been here, I've been practicing law almost 30 years, been here since 2000. So it's 24 years. I know a lot of these folks, and I've even gotten to know some of the lawyers that are from out of state that are participating in this. And so, we hear things. And so, it's interesting to sort of see what's on the other side of the stage door, right? Behind the curtains. A lot of us in the legal community have kind of known that, FaniWillis and Nathan Wade were kind of an item. And so when I first learned that he was like the lead special prosecutor, it's like, it's a head scratcher here. What's this all about? It just kind of didn't make sense. And now it's all starting to come together. This is nothing I had personal knowledge of, but it's one of those kind of, one of the rumors that you hear that you figure it's probably true, but you don't really pay much attention to it. Who do I care who's sleeping with who? But now we see how it really makes a difference, right? And so here we are.
Okay. Now you know most of the lawyers. Like I know you've worked with Ashley Merchant, Nathan Wade. The only one you don't personally know is Fani, right?
I don't know her, but I do. Here's what I can tell you about this. In the interest of full disclosure, we had a really bad DA before FaniWillis.
Is that possible?
That's why I'm laughing.
Well, it's like a Chicago mayor.
Well, he was bad. Yeah. Well, sometimes, the devil you know versus the devil you don't know. Well, I had a yard sign. I live in Fulton County, and I put a yard sign out for FaniWillis, and she was the devil I didn't know at the time. Because we all were looking for an opportunity to get rid of the other guy. And he was out here prosecuting. He was prosecuting cops during the riots of the Summer of Love in 2020 because he was trying. He had an election coming up, a contested election, and he was prosecuting police officers for doing their job. And that pissed me off. I come from a law enforcement background, and I still keep my certification as a peace officer in Georgia. Even though I do criminal defense work, it doesn't mean that I like crime. And it really, really bugs me when people like him start going after cops for political reasons. So that's why I put a FaniWillis yard sign up, because I wanted to get rid of that guy. But here we are. Fast forward to today. I don't like what she's doing here in this situation any better. This is just as wrong. And hopefully the judge is going to see that these shenanigans are just inappropriate, and hopefully she's going to be gone from the case.
So that's right. She ran as a moderate, didn't she?
Yeah, she did. She ran on the platform of we're not gonna have that. We're not gonna be prosecuting cops. We're gonna be honest. We're gonna have an ethical administration. We're gonna clean house. And all those things sounded great to me, because we got to get rid of this other guy. He's really, really, really bad. And so, it's just when you got and they're both Democrats. I actually voted in a Democrat primary so that I could vote for her because I wanted to get rid of him that badly.
Wow.
Well, devil, I mean,
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I've got an unusual guy here. This guy Gascon, who is from Cuba, is the DA that we have here in LA, and we had Jackie Lacey, who is a Christian black woman who was putting people in jail left and right, and that wasn't good enough. And now we got a Marxist DA out of Cuba. So
to let him out.
Yeah,
Or
to
keep
let him
him
out. Let him out.
Make crime legal.
So where is this going, Phil? Where is
right.
this ruling going to go, in your humble opinion?
All right. So, we saw the closing arguments today. So here's what this is all about. If I can just set it up, you've got this situation, I'll call it a scheme, where Willis has hired her boyfriend, her paramour, admitted paramour. She's steering money to him, lots of it too, in a no bid contract. She's steering it to Nathan Wade, who's never prosecuted a felony in his life. And she's paying him way more than the line prosecutors who are full-time criminal lawyers, good ones who work for her on the county payroll. She's bringing in an outside. He runs a criminal defense and personal injury office, but he's got this contract to prosecute Trump. And so he's one of a handful. And this arrangement in and of itself is so bizarre, but we don't have time to talk about all of that. So she's steering this no bid contract to her boyfriend, and they're keeping it on the down low. They're taking all these trips. He's paying for everything. And so the claim is that creates a conflict of interest because she, as the district attorney now, has a financial interest in the mere existence of the case. And every time they go to court, he's billing by the hour. Clock's ticking, cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. And as long as and now they say their relationship is over, and I believe it probably is, certainly by now. But back in the good old days when they were still knocking the boots, she was benefiting by every dollar he was being paid. That was the claim. And so a prosecutor cannot have a financial interest in a case. It just can't happen. But now we're going in a different kind of direction. That issue is still there. Now we've got the thing where, they claim that it didn't start until 2022, long after he was appointed special prosecutor. We have evidence now that is not the case. We've had direct evidence from one of her former employees and besties came to court and says, no, they were hugging and kissing all over each other in 2019. And so we've got direct testimony from somebody who knows them. Robin Yurdy's her name. We've got cell phone data now that shows that his phone was traveling from his home, not far from where I'm sitting now, all the way down to Hapeville, Georgia, down near the Atlanta airport, to the condo that actually was owned by this Robin Yurdy, who's testified about the affair.
Wow.
And now we have text messages between Ashley Merchant, who is the lawyer for defendant Michael Roman, Trump co-defendant. She's texting with this guy named Bradley, Terrence Bradley, who was the former law partner, friend, and for a while, the divorce lawyer representing Nathan Wade, who's FaniWillis' boyfriend. If you need to draw a chart, I can understand.
Oh, that's the sweaty guy, right? Who testified last week, sweating.
Didn't know if he ever took her to a cabin and all that. Yeah, that's the
right.
Yep. And so, they had a falling out for reasons that it might have been, according to the prosecutors, because some employee of that firm accused Bradley of a sexual assault, and maybe it wasn't. Who knows? But they had some kind of a falling out. And so fast forward to like last fall, Terrence Bradley is texting and talking with Ashley Merchant, representing Michael Roman, because she's found out about the affair. She's reaching out to Bradley saying, hey, can you help me figure out what the deal is with this affair? And so there's this long text thread, which you have, Eric, and I think you probably showed some of it. It shows a collaborative effort between these lawyers, and he's helping her. He helps her identify this Robin Yurdy lady, who is the one that provided direct testimony about the affair starting as early as 2019. But in his text messages, he says things like, you need to subpoena her original security detail from 2020. Those guys know about the affair. And he says in no uncertain terms that he knows that they started carrying on as a couple when because Willis had been an assistant prosecutor. She left to go get herself ready to run against her former boss that she beat. And so he says that he knows in no uncertain terms that they were having an affair when she first left the district attorney's office. So it goes back to like 2018 or 2019, according to those text messages. So now we got a situation where Willis has taken the stand. She busts in there like a wildcat, and she's, mad as a wet hen. She wants to testify. She wants to call Ashley Merchant a liar, and she's literally just coming apart at the seams to tell everybody how much she loves to spend cash. And then you've got,
I don't think I've ever heard the word cash mentioned as much in testimony in my life.
Well, if it were like a money laundering case or something like that,
or normal RICO.
Or a drug case, or
and before we hit, she says, she was in private practice for a while. She says she took some of that cash from her campaign money. She says she goes to the grocery store and gets a little cash back with her debit card. You gotta get a lot of $20 and $50 cash backs to come up with 6 months worth of cash in reserve, which is what she said she liked.
She also said it was a black thing. Am I correct? Did she say it was a black thing?
She said her father said, which by the way.
Well, her father said it too.
Right. And by the way, with him having his background, I absolutely believe her father told her.
Oh, the Black Panther.
Yeah, he's a Black Panther. Absolutely.
He's from out here in LA.
Yes.
Phil, you sent me something earlier today. I don't know if you've already revealed it to the public, but as a voicemail.
Well, it's out in the public domain, and I had somebody sent me a copy and I sent it to you, but yeah, it's out in the public domain.
Right on.
Okay, so here I'm just going to play it real quick to get a bit of flavor.
Well, before you do that, can we set it up?
Yeah, set it up.
Perfect.
What is it?
So you got Terrence Bradley is the witness he's the person in the text messages with Ashley Merchant. He was billed by her as being the person that was going to shell down the corn, as we say here in Atlanta, and he was going to come to court and confirm that the existence, under no uncertain circumstances, confirm the existence of this affair before 2022, as the couple has admitted to, and which would mean that they're lying. And if they're lying about that, they're lying about the cash and everything else. Well, by the time he gets to the witness stand under subpoena, he doesn't want to be there, and he claims attorney-client privilege, attorney-client privilege, attorney-client privilege. The things that weren't attorney-client privilege when he was texting about it, but apparently it was now. So he didn't want to testify. The judge eventually decided that he might be interpreting attorney-client privilege just a little too broadly. So the judge brought him back and had a discussion behind closed doors. It's called an in-camera examination. And then the judge ruled, okay, it's not all attorney-client privilege. Some of it's based on personal observation and other stuff. He's going to have to come back and testify and answer these questions. Well, when he came back, he didn't remember. He remembered the text messages, but claimed he was speculating. So they confronted him with these text messages and their prior inconsistent statements. And in Georgia, a prior inconsistent statement of a testifying witness can be used as substantive evidence, like a crime scene photo that the jury or the judge can hang their hat on to make a decision. So one of the things that he was asked the last time he was on the stand is, have you talked to Nathan Wade about this? And the testimony was something along the lines of, no, not since I left the firm, right? Which was a couple of years ago, like summer of 2022. So the testimony was no, and certainly not recently. So that brings us to the audio that I think Eric's about to play.
Okay, great. Roll it.
Hey, Ashley, I'm calling. So I just watched the Terrence Bradley hearing, and I noticed on there he said that he hasn't talked to Nathan Wade in 2 years. But I work at a restaurant here on the square, and I waited on Terrence, BC Chopper, and Nathan Wade about 5 weeks ago. So I just saw that and thought maybe you should know that if you want to call me back.
Well, that didn't work out quite according to
Wait a minute. Wait,
2 years, 5 weeks.
Okay.
One of these is not quite like the other.
So the Marietta Square, that's in Cobb County, which is right. My office is on the Marietta Square. There's a lot of restaurants right around there. It's a typical Southern town square, and got some pretty good places to eat. And a lot of the courthouse crowd will gather at these various restaurants. And, you know, if you go there enough, they know you, right? It's not, you know, we're not downtown LA. And, you know, if you go there enough, the servers get to know people. And so that happened, I think, today. And I know that when it became, all the lawyers who represent these various defendants, they all became aware of it. And at the beginning of the hearing today, one of the lawyers said, "Judge, before we get into all this, we want to reopen the evidence in the case because we've got something that you're going to want to hear." Well, and the judge says, well, I don't know. See, the judge didn't know what it was. And the judge says, well, I don't really think we need to reopen the evidence. You can brief it or send it to me later, you know, and if it's something we need to take up, then we will. So the parties, then they wanted to make what's called a proffer, where basically you say to the judge what the evidence is. You know, and the prosecutor doesn't know anything. I don't know anything about it. Prosecutor hadn't heard it yet. Well, before, you know, it had already been broken. I think Megyn Kelly played it at noon when she was live on Sirius XM. She had the audio, and I believe her team actually spoke to the server about it, and I think he confirmed to them that it is in fact true. So I don't know what's going to come of this, but what it would suggest was that there was some type of a meeting between Wade and Bradley, which can, you know, depending on the timing of it, it might explain why his in-court testimony was so different from the text exchange, which showed a friendly, collaborative, cordial, congenial sort of a working relationship together between Ashley Merchant, who was looking to develop her case and her claim so that she'd have an accurate motion that she could come to court and argue, and Bradley was helping her. So I don't know where it's going to go from here, but this is literally the latest. It's like breaking as of today. So when I say we're drinking from a fire hose with this case, it's just one thing after another. And I don't know.
Let me ask you this, Phil. Let's just play it out. Let's say she's removed. What happens then?
Exactly.
Let's just play it out both ways. In your humble opinion,
well,
she's removed. Now,
I think she's going to be removed, and of course they've also asked the judge to dismiss the indictment. But let's take it one step at a time. Let's say the judge doesn't dismiss the indictment, but he does remove her. Then that if she's disqualified, her whole office is disqualified.
Whoa. Let me just stop you there. If she's disqualified, the whole office is disqualified because they're reporting to her.
Yeah, she's the boss. It's the power that she has that she delegates to them. Yeah. Okay.
So who would handle this case? Maybe Cobb County or another county possibly, or
under Georgia's law, it changed a couple of years ago. It used to be the attorney general would appoint somebody, but now it goes to a state agency called the Prosecuting Attorneys Council. And they have to decide whether, and if so, who to send it to. But there's a problem. And there was another guy, his name's Burt Jones. You may have heard of him. He's currently the lieutenant governor of the state of Georgia. Mm-hmm. He won that seat the same time FaniWillis won hers. She, as a Democrat, supported the Democrat opponent of Republican Burt Jones, and she had attended a fundraiser, may have donated. When the special purpose grand jury that preceded the criminal grand jury, you know, in this case, when they were considering who to recommend charges and all this, another judge in Fulton County said, Ms. Willis, you can't go after Burt Jones. You can't even include him in your investigation. He took her off the case. He said, you got a conflict of interest. You got to leave Burt Jones out of this because you've got a political bias here. And so he disqualified her. They referred that investigation to the Prosecuting Attorneys Council, and it still hasn't moved. And here's why. Nobody else wants this. I don't think any other, maybe you can find another blue DA around in the metro area. But if the case is so tainted because of this conflict of interest and all the shenanigans that have been going on, and another DA is going to have to start over from scratch. And think about the money and the resources that it's going to take. FaniWillis came into office. She was one of these, I'm going to get Trump kind of prosecutors, like the Letitia James. Yeah. And so she targeted the man, and everybody that she could bring into this thing, she targeted. And any other prosecutor that would be willing to take the case is going to have to think about what it's going to do to their, it's going to drain their resources. It's going to, everybody's still working through the COVID backlog, for God's sake.
Right.
I mean,
right.
I don't
Well,
see,
that's where
I don't
the
really
money-
see any
that's where-
prosecutor won this.
Wasn't that part of the money that she was using for her vacations? Was the COVID money?
Well, that's another piece of the claim made by Roman's lawyer, Ashley Merchant. She meaning Willis, went before the Fulton County Commission. Excuse me, when she had like a PowerPoint and all this, and she was saying she needed all this money, millions and millions of dollars to get through the COVID backlog. They gave it to her, and then she starts this case. And so the allegation is that she misused the appropriated money that was supposed to go to the COVID backlog. She used it to go prosecute Trump and everybody else. Mm-hmm. And so now the Fulton County Commission is looking into whether or not she recently went back and said she needed some money for a fleet of 16 cars. They said, no, not until you give us some good answers about what you did with this other money. So look, so she's getting it from the county commission. The state Senate now in Georgia has set up a commission to investigate FaniWillis. They've issued a subpoena to Attorney Ashley Merchant for all of her communications with Terrence Bradley. They want to get to the bottom of it. Willis herself was sent a subpoena by Congressman Jim Jordan in the Judiciary Committee.
Yeah.
And now she's got, and there's not to mention the state ethics board now has a couple of cases open involving Willis, as does the Fulton County ethics board. So she's playing defense in so many arenas here that, I wrote a piece for Town Hall recently, and I said this case is just going to die a death of 1,000 cuts. And
what about her? Whether she's on or off, I mean, is her career and law license, et cetera, in jeopardy, or even it is potentially prison time for perjury?
Yeah, her career is potentially in jeopardy. Look, a lawyer has to be at all times honest with the court, even if they're under oath or not. But she came in under oath and testified, and in my opinion, it was untruthful. And now we're in disbarment territory. So if there's all these other, I'm certain there's probably bar complaints that have been filed already. Those are confidential, so we wouldn't have any way to know. But undoubtedly the bar would be looking at that, and if she's found to have lied under oath, she's going to be disbarred. She could potentially be referred for criminal prosecution. I presume that would probably go to the Attorney General. So winning the case against Trump, really, in my opinion, is the least of her concerns right now. She has to take care of some other business that could potentially hit a lot closer to home for her. Her career's on the line. Her law license is on the line. She wanted this, I think, as a stepping stone to other political office. That's probably gone now. She's going to be lucky to get out of this with a law license. But this is certainly not going away. And now that we've got the new witness that's come forward, that was the audio that Eric just played, I don't know how that's going to play out. That doesn't directly involve her, but it does involve her top prosecutor, the special prosecutor, Nathan Wade, which is her, I guess now former lover, at least. So yeah, she's got a lot going to play, and she's got some potential negative consequences that could be coming her way.
Phil, let me ask you something. One question. What was Wade doing in the White House, in your humble opinion?
Trying to get Trump.
Right. Okay. But let's be more specific. I mean, who is he meeting with? I mean, I understand the billing is whatever that crazy billing is, but who is he meeting with? What were they conspiring? Is this election interference? Who did he actually meet with? And can that be gotten to under oath by grilling Wade as to what he was doing in D.C.?
Yeah, and that's what Jim Jordan and them are after. That's one of the things. And see, Jordan has oversight over the White House. It was the White House counsel. That's the answer to your question. That's who his billing records indicate he met. One of them, I don't know. He did go to D.C. When he was in D.C., his records indicated he was meeting with like the January 6th committee up there. He, as I understand it, I read those records. He met with the White House counsel in Athens, Georgia. I don't know why the White House counsel was within Athens, Georgia, but somebody can figure that out.
Maybe they have a satellite office down there.
Yeah, maybe so. But so that's, there's definitely some contacts in D.C. and some contacts with with the Biden White House, which, by the way, they should never have had any contact whatsoever with the current occupant of the White House or anybody that works for the man, because they're prosecuting his political. They're prosecuting probably the nominee of the party that's going to be facing Joe Biden in November. And so
tell us about the RICO.
They have no business talking to him.
Right. Well, tell me about the RICO part of it, because that seems to be completely out of bounds and delirious. What's your take on the RICO part?
So the racketeering law in Georgia is pretty broad, and the way I like to describe a RICO case, if you think about a big wagon wheel, you've got the area, the circumference area, you got the spoke in the middle, and then the hub in the middle. You got the various spokes going out. So if you put a person at the end of each of those spokes, right? And they don't necessarily even need to know each other, but if they're working for that common purpose, which is the middle of the thing, even if they don't know each other or have any contact with each other, if all of them can be somehow put on that same wagon wheel, they can all be charged together as in some kind of grand conspiracy. Typically a conspiracy, you got to have a meeting of the minds. Mark and I would have to agree with each other that we're going to go rob the 7-Eleven. Okay. That's a conspiracy, but in a racketeering case, you don't have to have that meeting of the minds. You literally just have to be able to be placed on that wagon wheel somewhere. And so it's a very broad, powerful law. It was designed to prosecute gangsters and organized crime. And it's moved into, it's been moved into all sorts of things. We saw it in that, the college admissions cheating scandal. We saw it. FaniWillis used it herself when she was an assistant district attorney. They prosecuted several dozen teachers in the Atlanta area, the Atlanta public schools. It was a cheating type thing. It's a very famous case involving it's called the APS cheating scandal, where they were basically pencil whipping the SATs and ACTs, and
that was a wonderful scandal. I remember that one.
Yeah, and so she was the lead prosecutor. So she used RICO on that. So she likes to use RICO. But yeah, wasn't
this the fear of RICO when Giuliani was using it back in New York? I'm from New York, but that was the fear that it was going to be abused, Phil, right?
Yeah, it was. And I think in many cases it is.
Yeah.
RICO is one of those things where if you want to fit somebody in, and you're creative enough, you can find a way. And the thing about Georgia's RICO law, by the way, if you undertake some specific act that's, even if the act itself is not illegal, if it's in furtherance of the object of the, I don't want to say conspiracy, but if it's in furtherance of the basic criminal purpose of the racketeering, then that criminal act can bring you onto that wagon wheel. And that particular act doesn't even have to be in the state of Georgia. This is why they were traveling all around looking at what's going on in other states and things like that. They're bringing in people that did things allegedly in all parts of the state of Georgia, from well outside of Fulton County. It's a very, very broad, powerful tool. And, it's the kind of power that you want to vest in people who are fair-minded, people who are objective. You don't want to vest this kind of awesome power in people who have their own personal interests before the interests of justice. Fundamental fairness is what due process of law means. It's fundamental fairness. And if you don't have a fair-minded prosecutor, which is just as important as the right to counsel, the right to a jury trial, the right to be presumed innocent, all of those things that we learn about, hopefully in civics class, they mean nothing if you don't have a fair-minded prosecutor at the very beginning. And here you have a woman on a mission to get a specific person from the moment she takes office.
She's not alone. Like you said, Letitia James, the same thing. Right?
So people tell me all the time, well, what does this have to do with, Trump's guilt? It doesn't. We're not there yet. You can't just jump forward to the trial. You've got to have a fair process before you get to a trial. You can't have a trial without everything else being fair.
It's like poison tree and things like that, right?
Right now we're having to figure out if we have a sleazy prosecutor who's being unfair, or do we have somebody who's not compromised?
Where is the Attorney General of Georgia in this whole thing, Phil?
the Attorney General doesn't have a direct role in this right now.
Right.
A lot of people think that the governor does or the Attorney General does, and they don't. This is for the trial judge and for the appeals courts to deal with. It's potentially for the Bar Association to deal with. These, and if there's another prosecutor that needs to come into it, the Attorney General is even out of that. The only place the Attorney General could come in is if they need somebody to prosecute anybody for perjury. And so that could be the Attorney General's office. You could bring in the Georgia Bureau of Investigation to make a perjury case and either get the AG to do it, or the prosecuting attorney's counsel could find somebody to prosecute somebody for perjury. But
so there's a lot of tools in the toolbox.
Yeah. If they want to use them now, this is another thing. I've said that if I were the judge, by the way, he's a brand new judge. This is like, he had been on the bench like just a few months when he got this case, and he has to stand for election to his own. He was appointed by the governor to fill an unexpired term, but he's got to run, and the election's in May, so that's right around the corner. I forgot where I was going with this. The Attorney General, though, has very little to do with it. The courts and the prosecuting attorney's counsel, in the event that they need to do anything. But here's what I would say. The judge, if I were him, I would say, look, I'm going to put the brakes on this case right now. I'm going to ask for some help from an outside criminal investigative agency, like the GBI. And I'm going to get to the bottom of this and find out if these people are lying to me, and if they're perpetrating a fraud on the court, there's going to be hell to pay.
Gets him off the hook.
That's what I would do. That's what I would do. I would say, look, I'm not going to leave it to these defense lawyers to sort this out, because at the end of the day, they're private lawyers. They don't have the resources to investigate this that the state has. After all, look at Ashley Merchant. She's having to text with Terrence Bradley to get information. But the GBI and other, investigative entities have some authority, and they have resources. Now the state Senate, by the way, they have subpoena power. They're starting to do their own investigation, but they can't put anybody in jail. They can recommend changes to the law. That's all they can do. But somebody with the authority to get to the bottom of this needs to do a deep dive and find out who's committed a crime, if anybody, and if there's been a fraud perpetrated on the court, the judge needs to know about it and needs to take swift and very meaningful action, I think.
Okay. Really quickly, we had a super chat coming in. Since it's on point for Phil, I wanted to get it before he takes off. Hi, everyone. Phil, been watching you for a couple days. Best closing arguments ever. Judge McAfee seems to be a straight shooter. Is anyone in his ear now? Unless I think it's Soros, not Soros, is paying cash. Isn't cash in her case trackable?
Yeah, the cash is not going to be trackable. On the judge strikes me as a straight shooter. He's taking notes. He's listening. People make a big deal that it turns out he gave $150 before he was a judge. He donated $150 to her campaign. But like I said, I put a yard sign up for her too. That's because everybody wanted to get rid of the other guy.
Well, you deny knocking boots with her, don't you, Phil?
I can assure you that's
okay. No, I don't know. Look, I don't know. You come on the show here. What do I know?
Well, I was thinking she and Kamala resemble each other slightly, and Nathan Wade was in the White House. Oh, wait, never mind.
Wait.
Well, yeah, but the judge, I think the judge is being thoughtful, and he's, I wish he would not allow the prosecutor to make what we call speaking objections to every question. I'd like to give people the opportunity to answer their questions so we can hear what they got to say. But that's my only criticism of him, is I wish he could maybe control the party's objections a little bit more. But he's been down the middle. Is
he going to have to create precedent here, Phil, in Georgia law for this area of prosecutors and gifts and blah, blah, blah? Is this some area that's kind of gray, Phil?
Yeah, there's some grayness here. He's going to have to make a ruling, and whatever ruling he makes is going to be appealed. Whether Willis wins or the defendants win, whoever loses gets to appeal this at some point, and it's going to go to the Georgia Court of Appeals and perhaps even to the Georgia Supreme Court. And so there will be some case law that's made on the basis of this case. What it actually turns out to be remains to be seen. But needless to say, this is going to be tied up. This issue is going to tie this case up on appeal long past the election. Can you imagine if Trump wins, right, and he's the president? Is she going to try to put Donald Trump on trial in a courtroom in Fulton County? I think not.
Well, Kemp, I mean, the statements I've read from Kemp have been kind of muddy. He seems to be trying to be on both sides of the fence on this issue. Yeah.
Well, he's got no role here. So he was a witness before I know the special purpose grand jury, but I think he gave testimony before the criminal grand jury in this case, all pertaining to things having to do with the circumstances surrounding the election. And nobody knows what that testimony was. It's all in secret. Right. But because he was at one time a witness, he has stated publicly he feels like he just needs to let the court system handle it. And that's probably politically, that's the safest thing he can say. But he has no role to play in it. I see a lot of criticism of Kemp. He needs to step in and do something. Well, there's nothing he can do. He has no power to do anything at this point. Yeah. Our governor doesn't even have the power to pardon anybody. It's a state agency called the Board of Pardons and Parole. So
sounds
the governor,
like a warm bucket of spit, this job, Phil. What's the deal with that governor's job?
yeah. Well, I think there was probably some abuse of the pardons. And so a long time ago in the state of Georgia, I think it was done by a constitutional amendment or statute, but they took that away and they made it a state agency that has all the pull. Now the governor gets to put people on that board, but he can't make them do anything.
Who's that governor that showed up and testified? The former governor?
That was Roy Barnes. He was the governor, I don't know, 2 or 3 or 4 governors ago. He's also a lawyer that I'll see around on the Marietta Square. He practices law still, right around the corner from me. He's a very nice guy, but they brought Roy Barnes to court because at one point they wanted to perhaps bring Roy onto the team as a special prosecutor. Now Roy didn't want anything to do with it, but they brought him down there to court to have him testify to the judge. The idea being that, maybe Nathan Wade wasn't her first choice, right, to be the lead prosecutor on this. Maybe it was Governor Barnes. But
are you saying she knocked boots with Governor Barnes before?
No, but on cross-examination, Barnes said that when he went down there to talk to her about it, Nathan Wade was in the room. So
right, I remember that.
He was already on the team. So his testimony was absolute. I mean, I like Roy. I mean, I've met. He's a not very nice guy, very friendly. One of the most friendly gentlemen I've ever met. He's a good lawyer too. But he didn't want to have anything to do with this. And so, but when it came out on cross-examination that Wade was already in the room, Wade was already on the team. Her boyfriend was already on the team. So what difference does it make that they thought about bringing Roy Barnes on as well? Makes nothing.
Wow. Can I ask you something on another subject that we've got going on out here, which is the squatting in upscale homes that I notice is becoming outside in the suburb of Atlanta. We've got the same situation here in Beverly Hills and some other upscale neighborhoods. What is going on, and how do you get out of this mess?
Man, I tell you, we got a big problem here, and finally, our legislature this year has got some laws that I think it's passed. It's just going to, as soon as the legislative session ends and it's going to go to the governor, we're going to give law enforcement the ability to drag people out. It's just like, it's just like theft, right? Yeah. But even back to my days as a law enforcement officer, I remember dealing with these things and you have people that just wouldn't leave and we couldn't make them. Like we'd have to tell them, you got to go down and file an eviction. Well, you got them setting up nightclubs. There were no evictions.
Right. But I'm saying
they do. They have these party houses. Right.
Right. We have the same thing here, Phil.
In Queens now too.
Yeah. In Queens. I mean, it's spreading.
Well, you got to empower the cops.
Right.
You got to empower the cops. You got to give the cops, when you come home from vacation and you got people to set up shop in your house and they're not supposed to be there, you call the cops and the cops come in. Well, it's a civil matter. There's nothing I can do.
Yeah.
Well, they now those days are over. The cops are going to be able to do this. Unfortunately, this bill could be a little bit stronger. Unfortunately, it's a misdemeanor, but I think but at least it gives the cops the ability to get them out and that'll solve that piece of it. And you don't have to just basically say, all right, well, there's nothing I can do. You're going to have to go sue them in the magistrate court for an eviction, just like a tenant that doesn't pay their rent, you know.
And that's backed up. That's also backed up in court.
Yeah. So I think it's a good bill, and I'm glad that Georgia's finally going to do something about it. There's, people think that we're just a bunch of hicks down here. We can't get anything right, especially if you look at what's going on in Fulton County. Of course, you're going to have that opinion, but there are some good things going on in our legislature, and this is one of them. We're also about to crack down on retail theft, and they're going to start prosecuting that as organized crime. I know that's also a problem out there in California. Oh, yeah. Georgia's taking some real concrete steps to deal with that as well.
Well, we've got a governor running for president. So, here's something from Phil. Hold on.
Phil, do you think the lawyer the state chose for the closing argument was a good choice?
Wasn't it 3 lawyers? I saw about 2 or 3 lawyers.
Well, I think that they didn't have a choice because his name was Adam Abadi. The lady who had been handling the lion's share of this, her name's Anna Cross. She's another private lawyer that Willis brought in pursuant to a contract. And she is noticeably absent from the last couple of court appearances. She was absent again today. Her name has not appeared on any pleadings since sometime last week, which makes us wonder, is she coming back? And so if Cross is gone and Willis can't do it herself because she's the focus of this hearing, and if Wade can't do it because he's the focus of this hearing, the guy that did it was like the only person left that could do it. He's actually the head of their major crimes unit down there at the DA's office. But a lot of people are criticizing his performance as, looking like he was kind of unprepared. It's understandable. But I think they were just out of options. I think they had nobody left. And the big question is,
where's no one on the bench? They have no one on the bench.
Where's Cross? She said in an email to some other lawyers, recently, she's because with the hearing with Bradley on Tuesday, she said, I'm not going to be there. It's too short notice. I've got obligations with my other clients. And again, this is so crazy that you have lawyers that are not full-time prosecutors that are like contractors brought in. This is bizarre. But she's like, I got too many other things going on. I can't make it on Tuesday, and I'm going to be out for the foreseeable future or the next several weeks or something along those lines. A lot of us are watching very closely to see if she's coming back. It's an open question. Maybe she says, look, I think that my boss in this matter has been untruthful, and I gotta get out of it. I can't participate in the fraud. Maybe she said that, or maybe she really does just have too many other things to do. We don't know yet. We'll have to see.
Wow. Well, Phil, is it possible to have you come back next Friday with an update if you got the time?
Yeah. I like it. On one condition, Mark, and this is for you. You ready? Right.
Yeah.
You got to follow me on Twitter.
Oh yeah, sure.
I've been replying to you, trying to get you to for a while,
Me?
and you. Yeah, you.
Mark barely knows how to use Twitter.
I'm
he blocks everybody else.
I'm a complete Luddite when it comes to this, so please don't take it personally. Sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'll follow.
No, guys. But in all seriousness, I'm happy to anytime. I'm a big fan of the show. I tell you, I'm a JFK buff, and that's what got me interested in your show. And every time I go to Dallas and Dealey Plaza, I try to personally investigate it myself. And so, I'm obviously not the expert that you guys are, but it's something that's a rabbit hole that I find myself falling into from time to time. And it's just one of the things that got me interested in your program. So I'm always happy and I'm honored to be a guest, and I appreciate you having me.
Love to have you back. Give us an update next week so we can follow this thing. There's so many trials going on, Phil. I mean,
I know.
It's a full-time job now. We need to bring in
guys or the week after if there's nothing going on. From my understanding,
there's going to be with the sound that you played of that voicemail. I imagine there's going to be something happening in the near term on that. We'll just have to see what the lawyers are going to do. They're going to have to file something to deal with that issue. Yeah.
Right on. Okay. I think we got something here. This is great.
All right. Well,
thank you, Phil.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Can't wait to see you next time. Thank you.
All right. Thanks a
lot.
Talk
soon.
See you. Bye-bye.